We're here today to register our discontent with the governor's veto in the strongest possible terms, his veto of the voter registration, the automatic voter registration bill. Just 5 months ago, all of us and many others, including Senator Dick Durbin, stood in this room talking about the need to support automatic voter registration. Since that time, we had overwhelming support in both the House and the Senate, passed overwhelmingly bipartisan support, including in the state Senate, if you believe this. 50 yes, only 7 no. Okay, this was a bill seriously thought about. The essence of this bill and why both Republicans and Democrats support it in the strongest terms. Number one, efficiency in government. Number two, accuracy of the lists. And number three, the ease of the burden on voters. And what that simply means, in this day and age when our society is so mobile, people move a lot. And why deny people the right to vote or make them go through hurdles when we have the data sharing, when the data sharing in government, we have it right there. Okay, so that's the heart of what we wanted. Okay, so we thought that was the time to come. This is what we believed, what in fact was going to happen until, of course, this veto took place. My little makeshift things here don't always work here, so. Thank you. Okay. I explain why this is so important. Now to the governor, your veto has undermined all these goals. Undermined the goals of efficiency, undermined the goals of accuracy in our lists, and undermined the goals of ease of people registering. Let me be specific. I'm only going to take a moment here. Voters, as we know, must be registered at their current address. We now know of 700,000 people, thanks to ERIC, which is another thing we all work to pass. That is a data sharing process that Illinois joined with several other states. We share data, very important, because we can find out when people die in other states. We can find out when they move in other states, keep our lists up. We know now that 700,000 people have an old registration address. They're registered to vote. They're in the database, Secretary of State's office, but they're not at the address where they're registered. And we know that this is 1 out of 10 people in the state of Illinois. So I hope people are listening. So 1 out of 10 of you are going to go through an unfortunate process. The most efficient, the most accurate, and the least burdensome way of handling those 700,000 people are in the bill, which simply change these registrations and bring them up to date. That was part of the bill. Even though the bill was supposed to take place in January 2018, this part was to take place right now. So those 700,000 people could have been made whole before the election with modern technology, data sharing, boom. Okay. Now, the governor's veto ensures that those 700,000 people are handled in the most inefficient, the most inaccurate, and the most burdensome way possible. Most of them, of course, don't even know it. They think they're registered, and somehow they're going to find out, but it goes further than that. So one at a time. Remember, part of efficiency in government, and all these people here and our elected officials are working so hard to bring efficiency in government, is not do things one at a time, not when you've got modern technology. But what the governor's ensuring, these people one at a time, hopefully someone's listening today, finally realize, hey, wait a second, my driver's license or information is not updated, I got to re-register. The other things that disturb us so much because we want efficiencies is think about this. All the county clerks in the state have these lists, hundreds of thousands of people. Okay, so now we're mailing to these 700,000 people, but they're not there. They're not getting the information about where to vote, where to register, et cetera. Okay, we're paying people, temps, okay, to come in and do this stuff. Good people, but people make mistakes. All of these things are inefficient. We don't need to do it one at a time. We need to do it as the bill would have allowed to do it. And finally, in terms of the inefficiencies, we also passed Election Day registration. Again, the people in this room work so hard to do that. But none of us want Election Day registration to be the main way to register. Election Day is the stopgap when everything else doesn't work. Now, what the governor's doing, instead of maybe having 23,000 people Election Day for our jurisdiction, we're going to have over 100,000 people. That is insane and inefficient. Okay? Because that raises all sorts of questions. The irony is the governor used the phrase integrity. Integrity would be improved by this bill. Integrity is threatened by what he did. Okay? We do not want to drive everybody to Election Day registration. That is a stopgap measure. And so now these hundreds of thousands of people will be struggling trying to figure out what to do, and hopefully you'll let them know they need to do something. But this is a terribly inefficient way to do it. There's many other problems with this veto. The problem is we've got good people who want to speak to it, and so let's go right ahead now. And secondly, now we're going to hear from Kathleen. Okay?
Hello, my name is Kathleen YANG-CLAYTON of Asian Americans Advancing Justice Chicago, and today on behalf of the Just Democracy Coalition, we express our deep disappointment with Governor Bruce Rauner's veto of automatic voter registration. In our push for AVR, over 50 organizations statewide signed on to endorse, and this diverse coalition, all of these folks that you see behind me, include civil rights groups, community organizing groups, and good government organizations working together with policymakers and legislators from both sides of the aisle for 7 months to get this bill passed. At any time, the governor could have raised his concerns with SB 250, but instead he waited until the 11th hour and vetoed a good bill. Asian Americans and immigrants across Illinois are involved in this campaign because we know that the right to vote in this country was a hard-fought battle from its beginning. Automatic voter registration increases access to the ballot box, which is a crucial step to a more engaged electorate. Combined with a recent lawsuit attempting to stop Election Day registration, this veto signifies a step backwards for voting rights in Illinois. Contrary to Governor Rauner's inaccurate and unhelpful remarks that our bill would violate federal law and lead to widespread fraud, automatic voter registration will actually increase election security by taking our already existing electronic voter databases and making it easier to stop voter fraud before it happens. Governor Rauner brought up 3 specific instances of voter fraud in his veto message, all of which occurred over 10 years ago, 2 of which would have actually been prevented had AVR been in place. Thus, the governor's veto message conveys a false sincerity. He might say that he wants to modernize the voter registration system, but this veto says otherwise. He says he wants to prevent fraud, but instead, Governor Rauner demonizes immigrants, ignoring the fact that automatic voter registration would have prevented cases such as the ones that he cites in his own veto. Through it all, Governor Rauner's actions dismiss the months of work by our coalition and the bipartisan group of legislators who support modernizing voter registration in Illinois. In the months ahead, we will be rallying our communities and working together with county clerks such as David Orr and members of the legislature, some of whom will be speaking after me, to overturn this veto and reestablish Illinois as a national leader in voting rights. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is ROBYN GABEL. I'm from Evanston, and I'm the state representative for the 18th District. So I have been involved in voting rights for many years, since the 1980s when we first started doing deputy registrars. We would go door to door. We'd register people at local grocery stores and malls. And we made a lot of progress, but there is still much more progress to be made. There are still millions of people who are eligible to vote, but are not registered. Voting is a basic American right. It is not a prize that is given to those who can jump through the hoops and break through the bureaucratic loopholes. This bill would have made it easier for people to register to vote who are using state services, like similar to getting their license changed or getting their driver's license for the first time. I am very disappointed by the governor's veto. I am committed to continue to fight to make sure that every citizen in this state is enfranchised. There is a broad bipartisan coalition who supported this bill, 86 votes in the House. I will continue to work with that group, and I'm determined to make sure that we have legislation in November, either a veto override or legislation that we can all vote for. Thank you.
Good morning. I am State Senator Jacqueline Collins. I represent the 16th Legislative District. So as we've heard from ROBYN, the right to vote for one's representatives has been America's fundamental freedom since this nation was founded. Its expression in our Constitution and throughout much of our history was imperfect and perfected only by the willingness of ordinary people to make extraordinary sacrifices. Some bled, some were jailed, and many died. As a woman of color, I find unconscionable the recent campaigns in many states to reverse our progress, limiting access to the polls under the guise of fraud prevention. And this summer, we have seen federal courts uphold the Constitution and strike down voter ID laws with their discriminatory effects. Here in Illinois, I was proud to vote and sponsor the bill with a bipartisan group of many of my colleagues to reject the politics of suspicion and division and instead move forward toward greater access with automatic voter registration. The governor's veto of this legislation hits the pause button to progress. We have all seen powerful images of young people protesting injustice and calling for change. They are the voices of historically underrepresented communities, and they tell the bitter truth that government does not always work for them and their families. They need the power of the vote, and our arcane registration system too often stands in the way. Democracy can't wait. Democracy can't wait. That's why we call on the governor today to work with us to move our state forward and not backward.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Representative Carol, C-A-R-O-L, Ammons, A-M-M-O-N-S, from the 103rd District of Champaign-Urbana, representing the University of Illinois. Today is no coincidence that since the passing of the 19th Amendment in 1920, giving women the right to vote, women began attending colleges in growing numbers, entering professions once dominated by men, building their economic power and independence, and having influence with elected officials that represent them and the policies they enact. This veto flies in the face of that. It also is no coincidence that since the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, we've seen record minority voting. An immediate 250,000 of African Americans registered to vote at that time, a 35% increase in Hispanic registered voters, and 58% increase in registered Asian American voters. Minority voting blocs have gained political recognition and participation, allowing them to elect officials that look like them, live like them, and understand the unique issues that face them. Most importantly, it's no coincidence that as women and minorities are gaining representation as elected officials, utilizing the voting rights to influence party direction and policy choices, there has been a concerted effort to roll back the clock. This veto is in line with that effort. Not only has the automatic voter registration veto had no justification that is understandable, but Republicans are also attacking what we see happening across the board, moving away from the right-wing agenda to destroy the right to vote for American people. In Urbana-Champaign, we saw a 53% turnout rate among registered student voters, up from 21% in 2008. Of those 6,235 votes cast in 2016 primary at campus precincts, 82% of them were Democratic primary voters. This is part of that agenda. There is an agenda to restrict voting, and we should not mix words with that. This is a dangerous one. This veto re-emphasizes our efforts that we need to take to protect the rights of individuals to vote. I promise to continue to work on SB 250. As said before, we may have to do this in veto session because voting is a fundamental right. It is one of our major pillars of democracy. It brings balance and access. I am the first African American woman voted in the 103rd District in the history of Illinois. And that would not happen without the access to the ballot. We deserve the right to make sure that every American, 18 and older, and if you're 17 by election day, you can register and vote. We want to reduce the lines and the restrictions, and this veto sends the wrong message. So I urge the governor to work with us to find a reasonable way to bring efficiency to the voting process. Thousands of students at the University of Illinois will circle the Illini Union come this election day unnecessarily because they could have already been registered to vote. Let's work together to get this done, and if so, in veto session, we call on our Republican colleagues to help bring back the fundamental right of the access to the ballot. Thank you.
I stand here today with our coalition partners and allies in Springfield because we believe in the fundamental right to vote, which means that our government's responsibility is to ensure that everyone has access to the ballot, regardless of income, regardless of race, regardless of political affiliation. One person, one vote. And that's what automatic voter registration is about. That's what our coalition has set out to do, to reduce the cost and complexity of registration so that more people can participate, so that we can avoid long lines, and so there's less confusion on Election Day. Governor Rauner missed an opportunity for our state to have one of the most modern, electronic, and efficient voter registration systems, not just in the country, but in the world. If Governor Rauner had signed this bill, Illinois would have one of the most secure registration systems in America. If you're an eligible citizen, there's no reason you should be turned away from a polling place. And it's hard to understand why Governor Rauner would veto this common sense legislation. Automatic registration is not about political parties. It's not about politics. It's about saving time and saving money. It's about the health and integrity of our democracy. Illinois ranks 47th in the nation in terms of youth voter participation in local elections. And automatic voter registration is one solution to that problem. And Governor Rauner might like this. In Oregon, the first state to implement automatic voter registration, we saw an increase in youth participation among young Republicans who were automatically registered. So we'll keep working with our friends and allies, Democrats and Republicans, until we have the most secure, efficient, and accurate voter registration system possible. And we'll do that with automatic voter registration.